Joseph Santoliquito. We meet again. There's a reason why I called you Tranquilo. You need to shut the fuck up. Oh my God. Oh. The scathing Carson Wentz post from today. So apparently, Carson Wentz is egotistical, he is selfish, and he fails to take accountability. Come on, Joseph. You really think that we're going to believe this? Come on, Joseph. We've already seen resistance from the Philadelphia Eagles on this ridiculous, whatever you want to call this, monstrosity. Fletcher Cox, Brandon Brooks, Zach Ertz, Lane Johnson, Torrey Smith, even Nate Sudfeld, among others, already sticking up for Carson Wentz after this article was written. For those of you that don't know who Joseph Santoliquito is, he is a boxing writer. You should stick to boxing. In Eagles articles that he's written in the past, he said that the Philadelphia Eagles were going to be the new Cleveland Browns because of what they did, trading up for Carson Wentz in that obviously now famous 2016 NFL draft. He said a couple months ago that Carson Wentz wasn't clutch. And right after he said Carson Wentz wasn't clutch, he leads a game-winning drive against the Giants. And then he scores 2 game-tying touchdowns against the Dallas Cowboys. Eagles didn't win that game. But we did see some improvements in Wentz's clutchness. So here's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to take pieces from the article that he wrote, and I'm going to reboot, whatever, all of it, because it's ridiculous. You could see the hate in the article. Every single anti-Wentz narrative is in there. His doesn't spread the ball around, all that stuff. It's in there. And I'm going to make Joseph look like an idiot in about 30 seconds. Overcoming bias isn't an easy thing to do. You have to be humble enough to admit defeat. The reason why I say that is this. If your opinion was wrong about a player and you continue to be wrong about that particular player, well, now bias is just out the window. You're just a hater. And that's what Joseph Santoliquito is. He's a Carson Wentz hater. And as a guy who is considered a writer, it's unacceptable. And it's something that we shouldn't stand for in this city. It's ridiculous. I admitted defeat a couple weeks ago when I made a video about Nick Foles. I confessed my sins. That's part of being unbiased. I pride myself on it. Being able to, again, admit when you're wrong. Something that a lot of these writers, they don't seem to know how to do. All right, so let's take a look at Joseph Santoliquito's article now, because his bias is just one thing. Preposterous. Okay. Every one of our sources said the same things almost verbatim about the relationship between Wentz and Nick Foles. Quote unquote, they love each other, they respect each other, and they support each other. But while the sentiment in the Eagles locker room is that Foles is universally loved, Wentz isn't. Ooh. Sources describe Wentz as incredibly hardworking, determined, and highly intelligent, but the true Wentz is more nuanced and complicated, with sources describing him as selfish, uncompromising, egotistical, one who plays favorites and doesn't like to be questioned, one who needs to practice what he preaches and fails to take accountability. Those are some hateful words there, Joseph. Hateful, hateful words. I would say that maybe Carson Wentz fucked your girlfriend or your wife, but he's a good Catholic boy. So I don't know what he did to you. I mean, all this is preposterous. Egotistical? Fails to take accountability? I mean, at the end of the year press conference, I thought Carson was showing a lot of humility. And even after that Panthers game, if you remember, that was the game where, the Panthers made that comeback and Wentz had that one last drive to put the Eagles in front again. He missed the wide open Smallwood in the left flat. Bad miss. Terrible. Awful. He took accountability after the game. He didn't, say, oh, it was the defense who gave up 21 points. No. He took the loss on his shoulders. What are you talking about, Joseph? All right. Carson Wentz's biggest enemy is Carson Wentz, one source said. He's had his ass kissed his whole life and sometimes acts like he's won 10 Super Bowls when he hasn't played in, let alone won, a playoff game yet. Everyone around him wants good things for him. He did more thinking on the field than he did playing in 2018. You don't have to be a brain surgeon or a football expert to see how differently this team plays and reacts with one guy as opposed to another. Well, again, you're wrong. You don't have to be a brain surgeon or football expert. No, maybe you do. Okay. So if you watch my recap videos and you kind of watch my videos, if you remember, like after the Giants game and even the Cowboys game, I was like, this Eagles team, they're almost there. They're like 87% there. They were being held back by Carson Wentz at that point. And I thought, like Wentz was just playing really bad. And I thought it was the knee. And, I was starting to question, like, what the hell is going on? Then obviously we found out about the back injury. But the team as a whole started taking that turn for the better in that Giants game. If you remember, the offensive line for like the longest time was leading the NFL in quarterback hits allowed. The defense wasn't getting going until like later on in the year. The defensive line, the Eagles over the last month, they were averaging 3.25 sacks per game. And if they would have done that for the whole year, they would have tied for the league lead in sacks. So the entire football team just simply got better as the season went along. And by the time Nick Foles went in there, that's when everything was working 100% in tune. So it's not like, Foles just came in there and everything just got better. Things were getting better incrementally as the season was going on. And then Nick Foles came in there. They obviously won their last couple games, gave the Saints a run for their money, but obviously lost in that game. All right, so moving on to the article. There was one major exception. Wentz didn't want to run many of the concepts because he felt that was Foles' stuff, sources said. But as anyone who watched the Eagles could see, Foles and the Eagles' offense was successful running their normal stuff. The glaring difference is that Foles, every source stated, would go through his progressions within the offense exactly how it was designed to run and hit the open receiver, regardless of who it was or where they were in the field. Wentz only saw, it seemed, one receiver the majority of the season, Zach Ertz. This understandably frustrated the rest of the offense, considering other receivers were open downfield. To stop the Eagles in 2018 under Wentz was rather easy. Stop number 86. So this is that Wentz doesn't spread the ball around narrative, which I've already proven isn't true. But if you want to hear the numbers again, I will throw them at you. Joseph, listen to the video. Learn. Put it in your brain, pal. All right. So Foles' target numbers with Zach Ertz. He targeted Ertz 9.3 times per game as opposed to Wentz 9.6. So, okay, yeah, Wentz does throw it more to him, but only 0.3 times more. Wentz with all shine. 7.4 targets per game as opposed to 7 for Foles. With Tate, it was 6 targets per game for Wentz as opposed to 5.4 for Foles. So as you can see, the numbers really aren't that far apart. Where I would agree with, some of the narratives about his deep passing, I agree that Foles is better at targeting Alshon and putting the ball where he likes to go get it. I think that's where Foles needs to learn more. Did I say Foles? That's where Wentz needs to learn more so than anything is to really, when nobody's open, just throw it up to Alshon and let him go get it. So that's how I feel about that. I really felt like when we came out of camp, we didn't have that same identity, that same rhythm, that camaraderie that you build on and off the field. All right. Well, for this, I think this is simply Wentz not having that offseason. And even if you remember, Nick Foles was the one who started the first 2 games, not Carson Wentz. And the team just didn't look right. So whether that was a Super Bowl hangover or whatever, but that's not because of Carson Wentz. Wentz also struggled reading defenses this season, according to sources. I love how he just mixes his opinion in there and then just throws in according to sources. Like, you are a Wentz hater. So every Wentz hate narrative that you want to throw in, you throw in there, and then you just attach according to sources at the end of it. Wentz also struggled reading defenses this season, according to sources. His eyes were all over the place. Consequently, his scope of the field was far narrower. He pressed. Going into games, the running backs and wide receivers would openly question how many touches they would get because they felt Wentz wouldn't look their way. The offensive linemen grew angry because Wentz's indecision would cause them to hold the ball longer than necessary, resulting into sacks and hits. So here's the false narrative about the sacks and the hits and holding on to the ball too long. Wentz got rid of the ball in 2.49 seconds. If you average that out, that was 16th in the NFL. Nick Foles' first 2 weeks, he was getting the ball out in 2.79 seconds. That's 0.3 seconds longer. What was going on? Why was Wentz having to hold on to the ball so long? Well, when you have defensive linemen getting into the backfield pretty much immediately, consistently, it's going to result into holding the ball a little longer because, well, you got to escape the pressure before you get rid of the football, right? So that's what I saw there. And then as the offensive line became better and played better, those seconds per snap or seconds per pass were going down. That Dallas game, I think Wentz's time per pass was like 2.23 seconds. And it was pretty much the same for Foles when he came in. So, again, a false narrative. You really have to dig into these numbers, Joseph. Can't be a casual NFL fan for me. Got to be a little smarter. The subjects interviewed for this story gave the impression that Wentz changed after his injury, with Foles more than likely gone next season and nothing but open space ahead to rehab and spend a full training camp as QB1. There seems to be a good chance he'll be his dynamic self again, both on the gridiron and with his teammates. He has to return to who Carson Wentz is, a source told a Philly Voice. That comes with relaxing and not forcing things. It also comes with being able to take constructive criticism. He has to learn that it's not always about him, and that's partly what hurt this team this year. We know what type of player he can be and who he normally is. He needs to realize it's the Philadelphia Eagles, not the Philadelphia Carsons. A little humility goes a long way. A little humility goes a long way. Oh, the same could be said about you too, Joseph. A little humility. Why can't you just admit that you were wrong about Carson Wentz?